Hi, my name is Yariv Cohen, and this is my presentation on intentional observations, a science, math, and art lesson. I thought it was really nice to start with a quote that I found earlier in the week, and it stayed with me all week long through the discussions, through the debates, and it's one from G.H. Hardy. I am interested in mathematics only as a creative art. Just let it tied in so well with what we're doing this session, this module specifically, and it's something that I know I'm going to reflect on a little bit longer because it's this idea that I don't know where they're tying in the math and the art. I just thought it blended well with what we're doing this week. So the classroom setting. I found the video through the resource that you shared through Teaching Channel. And it was a video that showed a large room with a blue rug placed near the back of the room. And it was there for read alouds, discussions, and whole class sharing. The teacher's chair was along the wall with chart paper and an easel for drawing, modeling. Along the back wall and around the rug were shelves with books and student resources, and above them were bulletin boards with student work and teacher-created charts. Above that were some other charts that were for students, including a number line, the planets in our solar system, the months of the year, and the alphabet in both print and script. The front of the room, or towards the entrance or exit door, were student tables and chairs that were placed in groups of 4. The pattern of shelves with books and resources and student work and teacher-created charts from the base of the wall to the top continued all the way around the room. Some of the visible teacher work during this lesson included a word wall, a graphic organizer, and a book that was used in the lesson. There were 16 students, 7 girls and 9 boys in this second grade class. They all spoke, or at least those that were featured in the video, spoke English. That led me to believe that they are all native English speakers. There were no visible modifications made to address any learning or behavior needs, though as an educator, we all know that there were probably some made. The lesson was a smart art lesson. Again, it was science, math, and art with the objective of to use knowledge of patterns to create an animal art piece. The teacher was discussing in the video along throughout the whole day this lesson. So it was one that was touched upon in math, but he now launched it with a book, and the book was about life cycles, which lent itself into an art activity involving patterns that were discussed in an earlier math class. The teacher used a few artistic strategies, including extension projection, which was to help students visualize how certain animals move. In small groups, students were given time and personal space to discuss and practice what animal movements their given animal might make. This contributed to students' learning and the visualization of their thinking, and they had to make reasonable choices in how animals that specifically they were given would move, and they had to agree upon it as a group on the movements. And some of the students hopped around the room, and you could see here where they're practicing hopping, they're going around desks hopping, and then finally they're presenting in front of the class. All the while they're providing feedback to each other. It's just brilliant. The teacher also used mimicry, specifically when he asked them to draw a butterfly and create some patterns on or around their butterfly. He began by showing how to draw a butterfly, and then he elicited some patterns that they might see on butterflies, and he drew them on his butterfly. He kept asking for patterns that can be drawn, and he got excited when one child said that there could also be patterns around the animal, like a frame, and the teacher got so excited. After exploring some patterns around the butterfly, the teacher asked the students to go to their desks and copy him as he began to draw the new butterfly. He then walked around them and worked with them, discussing, reviewing. He allowed them time to practice and perform, and he's giving them feedback. And you could see how students were getting excited about doing this. And here in the picture, you could see some of the butterfly, the students drawing the butterfly. And then here are some of the end results that come at the end of the lesson, where the students were drawing those patterns. And you could really see the students were paying attention to what he was doing. As the students were drawing their butterflies, though, and before the end of the project, he did stop them and bring them back to the carpet to discuss as a whole class some patterns that they created or thought about. And it really helped them work through like maybe some struggles that they had or to see how others were doing things, and really that whole idea of feedback again and having time for this. The teacher also used reformatting, really learning about how the pictures help with meaning and the actual movement. It's that recontextualize that where they think about movement, and you can see and the students have the same exact things, the discuss, the space, the practice to perform and feedback. Here are students. Some are crawling around on the ground. The top right picture, they're elephants, and one student is actually making sounds, noises that the elephant would make. The students on the bottom are flying around the room. The teacher strategies included moving at an appropriate pace, and I'll talk about now how it connects to my practice, because I want to focus on incorporating art, projects, books, and time. And specifically, he allowed them time to discuss with each other in small groups how they thought their animals would move. Some students added how they would sound. This seems so simple, but it's so brilliant as it gives students a chance to share and perhaps confirm what they thought about the animal or to learn something new about the animal. I even thought it would be great to get the giggles out, where students can maybe say, yeah, my elephant, I know elephants can eat with a fork. And then they can giggle about it in their small group and then move beyond it. Say, okay, let's get back to the work. I just thought it was brilliant. They had time to practice the movements so they could potentially feel more confident when it came time to share with the whole class and have their best representation. I'm really excited to think about incorporating art into my class projects, as I feel confident I could do it in a genuine way that makes sense to my students and within the projects that I have. Often I have this feeling of pressure trying to cover all the standards within 1 year, but the time spent with students and connecting the students to the work, it seems so valuable, and it could actually save time throughout the rest of the year. There's this routine that could come from building in time for students to explore concepts through arts. So in these pictures, you can see an example of one of my projects that I do with students called Typical Sixth Grader, Finding Measures of Central Tendency. Students are asked to actually go around the room and record measurements of their shoulders, legs, arms, head, hand, torso, waist, shoes, and they create a model of this typical student using a measure of central tendency that they chose. Typically, I do it in 2 or 3 days. But I don't think that the models are very realistic, nor is the project one that gives them enough time to absorb the information. I now, through this week and through this class, I envision using this book I found called How Long or Wide? A Measuring Guide, and it's by an author, Brian Cleary. I would use it to introduce and tie into measures of central tendency. I could use a book and the fantastic images to get students to think about being creative with their model of a typical sixth grader and give them time to simply run around, find the mean, median, and mode of all the students' measurements, and then also have time to discuss which measure makes the most sense for us to use and have a clear rationale for that choice, not just choosing one. So I really think it's so important. And when I review, I think of art and how it helps to visualize, contextualize, and recontextualize the content. It supports connection to other disciplines. And it really is this brain-friendly environment. Projects, it's sharing the class. Your space around your desk is not your space. We're sharing this. And sometimes you're going to work with different groups. It helps make connections outside of the classroom. And it gives me an opportunity, not just focusing on a quiz or a test or worksheets, but for students to make connections, learning from others, getting feedback from me, from others, revisions, making modifications. Books, I think it builds a culture of literacy. It's a fantastic way to get that in. It makes learning accessible in a different way. I could associate the feel-good joy of reading with math. And I know that this isn't a very literacy heavy, but it's something that I've learned through this assignment that affects my practice. And I think it could be a tool and referenced currently and in future learning. So I just wanted to share those things about how I envision art affecting my practice and some of the things that I've learned through the assignment. Thank you.